Welcome to Wicked Mysteries, the channel where we examine curious, strange, and often deadly events. In today's video, we explore the harrowing case of Grace Millane, a young woman with a future full of possibilities, cut short simply by swiping right. Grace Millane was born in Essex on December 2nd, 1996, and grew up in a loving family home with her parents and two brothers. She was described as being a free spirit with a genuine love for life and kindness at her core. She was creative, artistic, and smart, academically gifted, and very ambitious. Fast forward to the year 2018, Grace had big plans for herself and had worked very hard while studying at the University of Lincoln, and as a result she earned a bachelor's degree in advertising and marketing. After being so focused on her education, she decided to do what many young adults do, and take a gap year before stepping into the next stage of her life. Fearing she may never get another opportunity to travel so freely again once she sinks her teeth into a career, the time to go was now. Grace was counting down the days to her big adventure, and was doing all the necessary planning and preparations in the meantime. The long-awaited day finally arrived. With her bags packed and brimming with excited nerves, Grace set off on what she hoped would be the adventure of a lifetime. The first leg of her trip took her to Peru. She spent 6 weeks travelling, exploring and making new friends, and was having an amazing time. Grace then set her sights on New Zealand for the next leg of her trip. She bid farewell to South America, taking with her a head full of memories she would keep forever, and was looking forward to making more at her next destination. She headed to Auckland and settled in at the base backpackers hostel. She had been there for around 2 weeks, and with her birthday fast approaching and her friends and family a world away, she was looking to celebrate. She used various apps during her travels to try and meet new friends wherever she was staying at the time, and had decided to head onto Tinder to see who she might find locally to talk to. She received a message from a man called Jesse. The two made small talk, and Grace mentioned it was almost her birthday. Jesse asked to take her for a meal and drink to celebrate. She seemed a little hesitant at first, but after talking for a while she eventually warmed to the idea and agreed to meet for a drink. December 1st. It was Saturday night in Auckland, the night before her birthday, and Grace was getting ready to meet up with Jesse. She left the hostel and headed to the agreed location, and as promised, they went for that drink. The two were a little awkward at first, but soon warmed to each other. One drink turned into 2 and then 3, and they visited several bars that night while getting to know each other. Things went so well, in fact, that at the end of the night they headed back to Jesse's place together. December 2nd. It was Grace Millane's 22nd birthday. Her family and friends flooded her with well wishes, messages of love and how much they were missing her on her special day. Texts to her phone and messages all over her social media were sent marking the occasion. Grace didn't respond to anyone. Her phone, in fact, was switched off. Throughout her entire trip, she always made sure to stay in touch with everyone back home to let them know she was safe, and alarm bells immediately rang when she went dark on her birthday of all days. The last communication her parents received was a photo of a Christmas tree she had taken while waiting for her date to arrive. Once the date was in full swing, her friend received a text saying, "I click with him so well." Grace was never heard from again. Her family were quick to contact the authorities, and police in Auckland began looking for Grace. They managed to track her movements that night closely via CCTV. They knew where she was staying and sourced footage of her leaving the hostel that evening, and could tail her from that point onwards by piecing together multiple cameras across the city. We see her first alone leaving the hostel. She was then tracked walking around the city centre and arriving at the entertainment complex and casino Sky City, where she was captured meeting up with a man and hugging him. After their friendly embrace, the couple headed to the nearby Andy's Burger Bar. Footage inside the bar shows them happily ordering drinks together. They chatted for over an hour before deciding to move on to the next location. The two were then filmed inside a Mexican restaurant ordering several cocktails. After spending more time drinking, chatting and flirting, they moved on again, this time to the Blue Stone Room. The couple had now become more comfortable with each other and the initial nerves of meeting someone new had subsided, aided by liquid courage, I'm sure. The bar's CCTV shows them drinking beers, talking, laughing, and even kissing. The mystery man can be seen heading to the bathroom and Grace takes that opportunity to text a friend about how well things were going between them so far. She was excited, especially because her date had mentioned that he was looking to move to London soon, meaning this encounter could potentially be more than just a fleeting holiday romance. Things were going so well that Jesse invited Grace back to his place nearby, and she accepted. Police found footage of them making the short walk from the Blue Stone Room to the City Life Hotel where Jesse was living, and saw them entering the lobby. They were then seen heading to the elevator together and taking it up to the 3rd floor. The couple exits the elevator and walk in the direction of Jesse's door, and the trail ends. Grace is never captured on CCTV again. Jesse Kempson, however, now had everyone's attention, and the police would be seeing him plenty. Jesse had quite a tumultuous childhood. His parents divorced when he was 3 and he was not particularly close to them the older he got. And he started rebelling, with accusations of stealing, lying and rude behaviour following him. Now out on his own, he was sort of drifting through adulthood. No real focus or direction, and while he had tried a few different career paths, nothing ever stuck, so he would move on to the next. He was living alone after recently falling out with his roommates. They had finally had enough of his selfish behaviour. He would lie constantly, then become confrontational and threatening when called out for his erratic and dishonest behaviour. He lied for attention and to impress those around him, especially women. One day he was an affluent oil executive, the next a successful rugby player, then a prominent gang member. The list goes on and on. He would say whatever he felt would garner him favour, even lying about having cancer and his parents dying for sympathy. He was a complete fantasist and a narcissistic manipulator whose need to create this twisted version of a perfect life was only growing more and more. December 2nd. While Grace was never picked up on CCTV again after leaving the elevator, Jesse certainly was. Just as the police had pieced together Grace's movements leading to the hotel, they could now do the same to track Jesse's movements after the fact. At 8 AM he was recorded entering the elevator alone and leaving the premises. He was then spotted buying a suitcase at a store nearby and returning home with it. He made a second trip, this time to the local supermarket, where he was filmed buying bottles of bleach, rubber gloves, and general cleaning supplies. He then made a third trip and was caught on the taxi's internal camera being driven to a car rental company. Footage of him arriving, renting the car, and driving home were all found by police. It was like watching a real-life thriller unfold. A girl is missing, and the last person she was seen with is now on camera buying a large suitcase, cleaning supplies, and renting a car. This is all far too ominous to be a coincidence. If this was a horror or thriller, then Jesse's next move was definitely an unexpected twist. Instead of dealing with whatever was waiting for him back at his hotel room, he instead went on another Tinder date. Maybe to keep up appearances, or maybe because he was unhinged. The CCTV evidence against Jesse was vast and still growing. His every move was being captured whenever he crossed the threshold of that elevator. On top of the mountain of other suspicious activity that he had already carried out that day, he was also caught renting a carpet cleaner, and then wheeling 2 full suitcases into the elevator and transporting them to his rental car before driving off. Just to make extra sure we are all following the same thread, Jesse is then filmed buying a shovel. Clearly, avoiding detection is not one of his strong suits. With all this evidence stacked against him, he better hope that he is a very convincing liar. He has had a lifetime of practice after all. The never-ending trail of CCTV footage doesn't stop there. After we last saw him take his mysterious trip with the suitcases and shovel shopping, over the days that followed he was seen visiting a dry cleaner's, washing the rental car and disposing of items in a park bin. On the 6th of December he returned home to find police waiting in the downstairs lobby of his building. He tried to evade them, but he didn't get very far. The police now had Jesse in custody, and while he was undergoing intense questioning at the station, his home, now a crime scene, was being searched for clues. The investigators quickly began to find evidence of what everyone had feared. Luminol, which is used for detecting the presence of blood, uncovered Grace's blood on the carpet. Jesse leaned into his lying nature when questioned by police about his whereabouts on the night of Grace's disappearance, and tried to feed them a fabricated version of events.
Tell us about Grace.
So I was talking to Grace on Tinder.
Yeah.
We'd matched on Friday. I saw that we'd matched the next day on the Saturday. And then we met at Sky City, and then we decided that we were going up to Andy's Burger Bar, which is on the first floor.
Whose idea was it to go to that particular burger place?
Me, because I didn't initially know that she was real.
What do you mean?
Well, there's a lot of... So have you heard of catfish?
No.
So catfishing is where someone uses your profile, or uses your photos and pretends to be you, and then meets, and you're a completely different person.
Right.
And it's on Tinder, it's all about the way you look. And so if they use more endearing photos, you're more likely to swipe for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does meeting in a public place sort of protect you from meeting someone who's not as good looking as...
Well, there's security there. So if she wasn't who she said she was,
yeah.
At least in my mind I'd feel safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's us.
Down there?
Yeah.
Is that before or after?
That is after.
Okay. And where are you guys going now?
So she's going that way, and I'm going across the street.
Where do you walk?
I go down Queen Street. No, I go down Victoria Street, straight down to the bottom, and then hang a left, and I head towards the viaduct.
You go to the viaduct a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've kind of walked in a bit of a funny direction if you were planning to go to the viaduct.
Well, it's the direction I normally go.
Yeah. It's I mean, I'm just sort of saying, like, if you were planning to go to the viaduct.
I normally go down Queen Street and then cross at the bottom of Queen Street, go through the containers,
Yeah.
and then walk along the wharf.
Yeah. Is there a particular reason you were going to do that?
I feel safer down that way. I don't know, it's a lot safer for me to be walking down that way than walking down the back streets.
Okay.
He was clearly unaware the police were piecing together the actual timeline for themselves, using hours of CCTV footage as their foundation.
How did the evening pan out?
Yeah, pretty good.
We actually don't know if she's been murdered or not yet. She may be alive and well.
Okay.
But she might also be dead.
Okay.
Okay? And it could be that you've done it.
Hey, I just want to ask a question. Am I being arrested for something I didn't do?
You haven't been arrested, mate.
Oh.
No.
Oh, sorry. Holy shit.
Jesse tried to change his story as he always did to fit whatever he thought would save his skin.
You've indicated that you're willing to speak to us about the events of last Saturday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me what happened last Saturday.
from the beginning.
There was no talking his way out of this one, and he was arrested for murder.
Did you kill Grace Millane? Okay. Jesse Kempson, you're under arrest for the murder of Grace Millane.
Tracking his movements and GPS data, the police managed to locate Grace's body. She was buried in a shallow grave in some scrubland near the side of a country road. She was found inside a suitcase. The pathologist on this case, Dr. Simon Stables, testified that Grace was strangled, and evidence that she was forcefully pinned down could be found in the bruising across her arms and chest. He noted that considerable and prolonged force must have been applied to her neck for around 5 solid minutes to result in her death. It's terrifying to imagine being restrained by someone so much larger and stronger than yourself, with no freedom of movement or way of fighting back, as you grow weaker and weaker with every passing second. Jesse changed his story yet again, now stating that yes, he killed her, but it was a tragic accident. Consensual rough sex that got out of control. The evidence and his actions after the murder say otherwise. He took photos of her dead body and looked at hardcore pornography on his phone after what he had done. He also made a series of disturbing online searches, including the location where he would ultimately bury her.
I went to the warehouse at the atrium, and brought a suitcase. I went back and I was just in shock because it just didn't seem right. I left to go and get cleaning products. So I messaged a friend and said I'll meet you at Revelry. After finishing drinks with her, I got back to city life. And the whole time I just kept saying, I'm sorry. And then I went downstairs and I grabbed the porter thing and I put the suitcase on top of the porter thing. I drove the hire car into Wilson's car park and parked it. I woke up the next day at about 5 a.m. and drove the car out to Cumu at first. I picked up a shovel from ITM at Cumu. I ended up driving towards the Waitakaries. I went into the bush, I dug a hole, I went and got the suitcase and I covered the hole. And then I drove.
Where is her possessions?
I threw them in the rubbish.
Whereabouts?
Albert Park rubbish.
Right. So what items of her property have been disposed of in Albert Park?
Everything.
All of her clothing?
Everything that was in the room.
Right. Whereabouts did you clean the car? The outside of the car?
I think it was in Henderson. I don't know West very well.
Okay. And what did you use to clean the car?
A water blaster thing from a car cleaning place.
Did she have any injuries?
Not that I can remember. I was just panicking.
Did you inflict any injuries on her that caused her to die?
No.
Did you kill Grace Millane? Okay. And you're under arrest for the murder of Grace Millane on or about the 2nd of December.
Okay.
You understand?
Yep.
Did you intend to cause her death?
No.
Jesse Kempson pled not guilty and his trial began. During the trial, Jesse doubled down on his sex game gone wrong version of events, and his lawyers tried to tarnish Grace's reputation by revealing Grace was active on a BDSM dating site, with the hopes of framing it like she was clearly a willing participant. Her ex-boyfriend made a statement that when they dated they did partake in bondage, but they always had clear rules in place and were very careful and safe. They had safe words and signals to ensure no one was ever in any real danger. They also had safety measures in place specifically if choking was involved. The hands were always placed at either side of the neck but never the front, where breathing could be fully restricted. While Jesse's camp tried to spin the narrative Grace was into rough sex and therefore this was an understandable accident, what they actually revealed was that she was experienced in the area, and therefore the likelihood of a so-called mistake like this happening was minimal. She was always very careful and knew the risks. Her reputation outside of the bedroom tells you all you need to know about Grace, and dragging her sex life into the courtroom was a deplorable and desperate move. It is not, however, an uncommon defence strategy. Susan Crane Bacos wrote an article in the late 80s about the rise of this courtroom tactic, and it has grown exponentially since then. The article included a quote from a lawyer who wished to remain anonymous. They said, "If you can convince a jury that the victim was sexually aggressive or kinky, you have them 2/3 of the way toward finding involuntary manslaughter. Grace was an adult, and her sexual preferences are irrelevant in this case. She did not consent to be killed." During the trial, Jesse Kempson's dark past was revealed. Just 8 months before he murdered Grace, he had taken another British traveller on a Tinder date, charmed her, invited her back to his place, and then brutally raped her when she refused sex with him. She was too terrified to report the attack at the time, but came forward after recognising Jesse on the news. He also had a long record of abuse against his ex-partner, and after she too came forward after Grace's death, he faced multiple charges, including, to name just a few, sexual assault and holding her at knife point while threatening to kill her. How many violent incidents he was involved in that weren't reported is anyone's guess. The woman he took on the Tinder date while Grace lay dead on his floor on her birthday also came forward and described her brief experience with Jesse. They had chatted for 2 weeks before meeting, and he seemed nice at first, but became very persistent about meeting in person. She was wary, but agreed to go for a quick drink. She said he looked a lot heavier in person compared to his Tinder photos, and while chatting told her where he worked, but it didn't match what he had said his job was previously, and she became uneasy. He started talking about his friends and how they were all police officers and prosecutors, and that they were struggling to locate missing bodies because they were buried too deep for the search dogs to detect. The area he mentioned being searched in his story was where he planned to put Grace. Later, he told her a guy he knew had rough sex with his girlfriend and accidentally strangled her to death, and that one mistake led to him getting charged with manslaughter, and how crazy that was. Feeling uncomfortable, she quickly changed the subject. As the bizarre date drew to a close, the two said their goodbyes, and both their cars were parked down the same street. The woman had an odd feeling though, and lied to him, saying she was parked in the opposite direction so she could leave alone. Jesse messaged her later saying he had a great time and asking to see her again. She declined. In hindsight, she feels very lucky she was unharmed, and that if it had been an evening date or there were less red flags during the date, she could have easily met a similar fate as Grace. Jesse remained emotionless during the trial and without remorse. The jury watched all of the CCTV evidence and saw through his blatant lies. They found him guilty. Jesse Kempson was sentenced to life with a minimum of 17 years. He has made it clear he will appeal his conviction at every turn and maintains Grace's death was accidental. He was also charged for his previous crimes that came to light during the investigation.
You're so full of mate. You have no reason to convict me. You're full of
You'll have to forgive me because I'm not very good at this. The verdict of murder today will be welcomed by every member of the Millane family and friends of Grace. It will not reduce the pain, the suffering that we've had to endure for over the past year. Can't see it. Grace was taken away from us in the most brutal fashion a year ago, and our lives and family have been ripped apart. This will be with us for the rest of our lives. Grace was a beautiful, talented, loving daughter. Grace was our sunshine, and she will be missed forever. She did not deserve to be murdered in such a barbaric way on her OE year. We would like to thank several people. Auckland Police Force, been professional, diligent and thorough all through this investigation. A special thank you to Detective Inspector Scott Beard, Detective Senior Sergeant Greg Brand and Detective Tony Jordan. We would like to thank the Crown Prosecution team, Brian, Robin and Lita. They never flinched away from the more intimate details of the case and were compassionate and thoughtful where the family matters arose. The press contingent, you lot, who have attended court every day with my wife and I and reported truthfully, respectfully, all events as they unfolded. Last but not least, we would love to thank the people of New Zealand. They've opened their hearts to Grace and her family. I cannot express our gratitude enough for all the offers and gifts of kindness that we have received over the last year. Finally, we must return home and try and pick up the pieces of our lives and day to day without our beloved Grace. Thank you all.
Grace's family were crushed by the details of their daughter's death and disgusted by the callous man responsible. As they struggled to cope with life without Grace, her family wanted her to be remembered for more than her tragic end, and instead as the kind soul she was. Before her trip, she had cut off most of her long hair and donated it to a charity that makes wigs for children undergoing cancer treatment. Following in that vein, her family started supporting domestic abuse charities in her honour. The White Ribbon campaign aims to prevent violence against women by engaging with men and boys directly instead of focusing only on women needing to protect themselves. The family and friends also created Love Grace, a movement that takes beautiful handbags filled with essential toiletries and small luxuries and donates them to domestic abuse charities. Each bag contains a tag bearing a simple message: Love Grace. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment, like and subscribe and turn on the notifications for more wicked mysteries. Remember, always lock your doors and windows, and if you're anything like me, always have an axe nearby just in case. I'll see you in the next one.